Hello everyone, it's your favorite night out here, out on this unfortunately sunny and humid day. Just back in from getting a little yard work done, and had to get this done. This is part of a larger series. Before we get started, feel free to subscribe for future videos. This is an unsponsored video. We're not sponsored by any brand names that may or may not be seen or mentioned within this video. Fantastic. Alrighty then, let's get on with it, shall we? Well, down here we will be talking about, general issues concerning quality control in civic defense and the idea of the militia. I use air quotations because the militia means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And, generally speaking, that's just going to be the case in most of the world. There's a wide variety of opinions on it. Quality control is going to feed into those perspectives a lot. Now, moving on. Before I start rambling, of which this is my latest political rambling, so ramble. Quality control feeds into perspective and determines, generally speaking, how well you can actually do what you're setting out to do as part of a civic defense effort to protect your community. It takes multiple forms to consider, and in this case of this video, for sake of organizing, it will be broken down into a series of distinct sections, which I'll just casually hop from one to the next, and the end of the video. Alrighty then. The first is quality control of finding recruits. Not only finding the recruit, but finding people who in your community, if you're going to limit yourself to your community. And if you start recruiting from outside your community, that can negatively affect perception because, then you're talking about multiple communities. And if it's only to protect the one community and that person's in another community, that might be an issue for their community, and, it's a whole compounding issue. Many compounding issues, but this is a very complicated and politically charged topic. Of that, I'm aware. This quality control, once you get past the recruitment, finding people who can meet whatever qualifications you set, and you're going to have to face other quality control issues. Training, and, of course, equipment. The training and equipment is very, very important. And training, it's going to vary wildly. Now, we live in a time where there's ample, high-quality training available to people. That is absolutely fantastic. We live in a time where, generally speaking, if you have some money, which a lot of people don't, which is going to feed into the problem, and because most people you're probably going to be looking to join your little civic defense group are going to be of a poor income bracket, a lower income bracket. I mean no offense. And although by saying that, a lot of people tend to get offended because by saying not offended, alright, I'm going to ramble. And so whatever the economic income's going on in your militia, you will have to compensate for. You don't technically have to compensate for it, but you're eventually going to run into problems if you don't. And that's going to be quality control of the equipment that's available to them if they have to buy it themselves, like in ancient times where the Greek hoplite had to buy their own equipment. And this is part of the issue. The equipment they get is going to be dependent on what they choose to buy with the money they have available. And if the money they have available ain't very much, they ain't going to be able to buy very much. And they're limited in cash. They're going to try to buy things that are familiar to them. They think it would be acceptable. And if you set arbitrary guidelines on what they can and cannot purchase, you can also limit them heavily on how much of it they can purchase. Because there's things, because you may have, like the mid-price range, but there might be a lower price range they can afford of the same thing. But if you set it for the thing that's in the mid-price range, that's less they can buy. And the less money they have, the less they can actually participate in what you're asking them to do. And if it's just your community, maybe that's not much of an issue to you because you ain't expecting to go anywhere. Which might not be the case if anything does happen. And, well, then you're going to run into, well, the equipment, and then, of course, there's going to be food. And whenever people are choosing to pick, if they're buying it themselves, or if you're buying it, you're going to have to take costs into effect as well. The best they might have available to them might not be what most people consider the best for the task. The best might be something like this. This is a Milsurp SKS, a nice little Chinese model of SKS. Absolutely fantastic. Let me get that back on the table. And then they might not be limited to something like this. This is a hunting carbine, and this particular variety of hunting carbine is called a scout rifle. This is a Savage 11 Scout. This might be the best that they can afford and that they perceive as acceptable for the task at hand, just like that Milsurp rifle. Let me set this back down. Alright. And even though the hunting carbine is, of course, a bolt gun, then you just might run into individuals like myself. They're running hunting carbines or hunting rifles, and that's what they drill with, because that's what they've put their money into beforehand, or it might be in your area there's legal restrictions on something like AAR or an AK. Now down here with those two rifles as an example, the SKS is fairly modern, considered outdated, but capable. Someone might think to get that, especially with the wood furniture. They just might be drawn to it, and then they show up for training day, and they show up with an AKS with a ton of clips for it, and then everyone else is rocking an AK and an AR. Most people would consider the person who showed up with the SKS a liability at that point, and it might create internal divisions within your own militia, just based on the sheer fact of the wide variety of people, or civic defense, that anyone, the wide variety of stuff. And then you have to take into account food. The quality of food will vary. You might get people who get something more appropriate, like this over here. These NRG5 emergency ration bars. But they also might just buy stuff they're familiar with that they think fits the role. And even if you buy, you're going to have to consider cost too and what you're getting. And generally speaking, here, let me reach. A lot of people just might buy a bunch of jerky. Buy a bunch of jerky, Monster energy drinks. This is my new personal favorite. And I only drink the zero sugar. And also, they might, only buy, like, crackers and canned meat, like classic corned beef. Or, in my particular case, if I was running the show and buying things, hope everyone likes fish. Now, people may be like, hey, well, you should buy something everyone generally eat. Well, for one, most people generally eat fish, in my personal opinion. I don't have the raw numbers on how many people don't like fish. They might get something tasty, like this little old treat here, a little can of sardines in Louisiana hot sauce. This is one of my favorites. I smear it on crisp bread. I get it Food Kitty. And I upgrade something a little nicer, like some mackerel and olive oil. Or, you want to treat yourselves? Of course you have squid. Fantastic. Now you tell them to get something with high energy and protein. They might not think to get something more appropriate, like a protein bar. They might just simply buy, let me reach way over here, peanut M&Ms. Fill a backpack full of these. And if you tell them not to do it, and they look at the price of those other things for the same weight, and this is just the fact that you prefer this, that might turn them away from signing up to your little civic defense route if you're hard restricting what they can and cannot eat. And on top of that, there are of course things you probably shouldn't be eating tons of, just due to health reasons, like you need a balanced diet. You say bring something dry, it's easy to cook. They might pick a cheap pack of noodles, or bag of dry beans, which take time to cook. You gotta let them soak. These are going to be It's going to create massive variety, a massive variety of what people have to bring to the table to eat, and not everyone's going to have a ton of it. This is going to create clear divisions in the group because some people are just going to be eating better than others. And if you have some sort of like higher authority in the matter and can restrict what people have at the time, what they buy for, the role, they might not choose to take the role. And then you're in the community just trying to bark orders at people who don't care, might go start their own group. And you've just successfully divided your community because you had standards that the average person in your community couldn't keep. Because, the quality of recruits, quality of recruiting efforts you take, quality of equipment available, what are the legal restrictions, what are the available foods, what is the restrictions on, say, their financing in general. How much of that finance are they willing to put into it to begin with? And these are all factors that are going to be at play. And it's all going to at some point negatively affect anything you do. And that's one of the benefits like national militias get. Although there is a reason why most countries that have militias still don't call them militias. They call them by something else. And that's due to perception of, specifically perception of quality of training and all that other stuff I'm mentioning is starting to double back on. So this video is already, basically 12 minutes long. Thank you for your time. Like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate any comments in the comment section. Positive, negative, I do enjoy. These are my political ramblings and opinions. And, well, thank you for your time. I guess I'll be seeing everyone around. Dude.